And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That's right, it is time for Coffee Talk, where we will be diving into what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some snippets from the news that we will read through and have a little bit of discussion. And of course, you're watching and or listening to Coffee Talk at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and fistfulofradio.com, where you can find me Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, as we get ready to start working our way into what is going on in the world today. A huge mess. A huge mess all over, naturally, because that's the kind of world we live in. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chosen to chime in on the live portion thus far. And of course, I do try to read as many comments as is reasonable. I see Donna Beaver is here, who reminds people thumbs up, like, and share. Please do, if you don't mind. Helter is here, who reminds us it's April Fool's Day. And funny thing about that is that I've never ever seen anyone attempt an April Fool's prank in real life. I've only ever seen it in TV or whatever television shows. People do April Fool's nonsense. I've never seen or heard of even anybody doing anything like that in real life. Just making the point. Brian is here, who says that they just turned 26 yesterday. Well, hope everything went well for you. A happy birthday indeed. Dragon is here. Velvet Pilot is here. Who else is here? Cyberjack Sr. Monkey is here. He says workplace is having a power outage right now, the second time. Okay. Fluke Man is here. Bob is here in the UK. Says sunny UK at last, though the rain let up. New York Patriot is here, as we're getting ready again to dive into what is going on in the world today. And of course, we're going to start off in the White House, because there's been a big fiasco there over the weekend on Easter. I'm sure many of you have heard some of the rumors coming out of this year's Easter celebration. And hate to break it to you, they're all true. They're all true. So yeah, Biden and his administration are under fire for their debacle at the so-called Easter celebration. I see Holly has joined us just in time, Holly. We're going to pick Easter apart as we get into this. And we're going to start off with a Fox News article. I've got two pulled up, and one more. Urban Angst has joined us from Canada. Fox News article. Whenever Restream gets to it. And there it is. Religious themed designs are banned from the White House Easter egg contest. Because you don't want anything religious on Easter. No, that's a bad idea. Children of the National Guard are prohibited from submitting religious Easter egg designs for the 2024 Celebrating National Guard Families art event at the White House. The art contest is part of the White House's Easter traditions, which includes the annual Easter egg roll. The flyer for the contest states that an Easter egg design submission must not include any questionable content or religious symbols or overly themes or partisan political statements. The part of the White House Easter tradition, America's egg farmers for nearly 50 years have proudly presented an intricately decorated commemorative Easter egg to the First Lady of the United States. In 2021, the White House expanded on this longstanding tradition by displaying youth-designed Easter eggs in the White House East Colonnade, the flyer explains. On behalf of First Lady Jill Biden, the adjuncts general of the National Guard are asking youth from National Guard families across the United States and U.S. territory to submit artwork inspired by the theme celebrating our military families. The flyer continues. Children are asked to design eggs with images based on their own lives. Selected designs representing the unique experience and stories of National Guard children will be brought to life on real hen eggs by talented egg artists from across the country and displayed at the White House in the Easter and Passover season, the flyer says. But children also can't promote material that has bigotry, racism, hatred, or harm against any group or individual, or promotes discrimination based on race, gender, religion, nationality, disability, sex, orientation, or age in their designs, and no religious themes. But I thought you said you couldn't discriminate based on religion. That's part of your description here. Nothing that has bigotry, racism, hatred, or harm against any group or individual, or promotes discrimination based on race, gender, or religion, or nationality, or disability, or sexual orientation. But then you say that they can't have any religious themes in their designs on Easter eggs during Easter. Did I miss something? Did I miss anything? And I see Paul Burke has made it, as well as Semper Fi, who is still in New York. Boogers is here. New York Patriot said youth designed water eggs painted in the rainbow flag. Yeah, that would be acceptable. And Nature Nerd says White House needs to watch South Park. Yeah, well. Fluke Man says they clicked on the notification for the live stream and never noticed that option before. I actually thought all I needed to do was subscribe and hit the bell. Anyone else remembers the old YouTube? Just sub? Yeah, I know. And James O'Donnell is here. Glad you could make it. And Velvet Pilot said Christianity doesn't count. Christians are the only people who can be ridiculed and made fun of in today's culture. Yeah, because you're supposed to suck it up because it's a Christian thing to do, which is not biblical, by the way. Urban says, be careful in Canada. Accidentally misgendering an egg could potentially be prosecuted as hate speech. And I'm not even sure I'm kidding. You're probably not. Dragon says, if they can't enjoy painting eggs with the family and setting up a hunt for the kids or nieces and nephews because they're insufferable people. It's ridiculous. Not that, don't even get me going on the whole bunny trail of where Easter even comes from in the first place. Some of you are probably aware it was another holiday, a pagan holiday celebrating Esther that was adjusted, shall we say, by the Catholic Church centuries ago to fit their narrative, which is where most religious holidays really come from anyways. But there are people, despite the fact that you got people in bunny costumes and chocolate eggs and Easter baskets and a bunch of junk that trivialize the holiday anyways, there are a lot of people who take it seriously, who view it as a religious holiday, who see it as a demonstration of the resurrection and so forth. And you're going to hold that celebration, but then not allow the religious themes. Think about that. And Fluke Man says, do these people know what Easter actually is? The egg represents the cave, right? Yeah, that must be it. Helter says Satan is working overtime in this wicked world. He's trying to get as many people as he can to hell. He doesn't have to work that hard. The people do it for him. I always think of Devil's Advocate with Keanu Reeves. And when the devil confronts him and he says to Keanu Reeves' character, when did I ever lie to you? When did I ever mislead you? You did this, I told you not to. You did that, I told you not to. You never listened to me. I don't have to do anything. People do it all by themselves. There's some truth to that. Nature Nerd says Orthodox have a different Easter day. And 115 says their cat has eaten 7 of the 8 4-leaf clovers I found. Typical Russian blue. They're eating your clovers? Yeah, our cats like to chew on plants too. And Monkey says, I bet the bunny suits are the secret agents making sure Biden doesn't walk the wrong way like last time. There you go. Now, this isn't where it ends. Because there is another article linked with this. They don't mention it in this article, so I got to go pull up another one to make the point. And Brian says Halloween was also inspired from a pagan holiday and tradition. Yeah, Valentine's Day, Christmas, even the actual Christmas holiday placement itself with the Yule tide and all of that. You could go on and on. But here's another one. Here's another one. Because Biden had other ideas. This article comes from the Washington Examiner. Washington Examiner. And here it comes. Biden proclaims Easter Sunday as Transmogrified Day of Visibility, sparking outrage online. And you know why I say transmogrify, of course. So those of you who are familiar with the channel, you know I alter that word because I alter that word because of ScrewTube's algorithms pick on me, and they don't like me to say certain things because they give me a hard time. So, but you know what I mean when I say transistor, transmogrified, translucent, anything like that. He declared it to be the Transmogrified Day of Visibility. And according to both of these articles, by the way, it's conservatives who are angry about the religious themes in the Easter egg hunt and the Easter painting contest. And about this also, it's not just conservatives, me, that are frustrated about what's going on in this country and being forced on us by this administration. So article reads, and again, this is the Washington Examiner. President Joe Biden sparked outrage online when he proclaimed March 31st as the Transmogrified Day of Visibility. On Friday this year, Easter Sunday falls on that day. A number of prominent political figures have voiced their concerns with Biden's proclamation, claiming the president has canceled or replaced the holiest day of the year for Christians with Transistor Day of Visibility. In reality, Biden did not choose March 31st as Transistor Day of Visibility, as it began in 2009, founded by the executive director of Transmogrified Michigan. Hold on a second. Rachel Crandall Crocker. Biden will also continue to celebrate Easter with an annual Easter statement and Easter egg roll hosted on the White House southern lawn. Still, that didn't stop some from expressing their discontent at the proclamation. Okay, just because some person in Michigan declared in 2009 a Transmogrified Day of Visibility, Biden didn't have to affirm it. He didn't have to affirm it. And that's what the problem is. He didn't make it up. He didn't create the so-called day, but he affirmed it. And it's been followed up on. I don't know if anyone has seen or heard that New York, in celebration of this, on Easter in the evening, lit up rainbow lights in the sky. Who saw this? No joke. They lit up rainbow lights on some of the towers in celebration of Transmogrified Day of Visibility, but nothing for Easter that I'm aware of. That did happen in New York. Thank you, Holchel. And Helter says Obama did the same thing before Mother's Day by proclaiming a celebration of gay marriage by misquoting Matthew 7:12. Yeah. And Velvet Pilot says, how do you feel about flat Earth or geocentrism? I don't believe in flat Earth. I did a video on it a long time ago, but I know a lot of people are convinced by that, and they said that people used to believe the Earth was flat. No, they really kind of didn't. And there's even, I forget his name, but there was a philosopher / mathematician like 3,500 years ago that in Greece who plotted the circumference of the Earth based on mathematics because they knew it was round, and he was accurate within 24 miles of the actual size. Plus, all you have to do is look up in the sky. Any heavenly body is round. If you're out on the ocean, you can actually, if you're out far enough, if you've ever been on a cruise, you can actually see the curve almost on the edges of the horizon. So I don't believe in any of that. And what purpose would it serve anyways? You drill deep enough, the Earth will leak. Where does it go? Dragon says he should have declared April 1st as Transmogrified Day. Yeah, April Fool. There you go. But he did that. He proclaimed it but he didn't so much proclaim it. And you can't say that that day really existed because some activist in Michigan said that such a thing existed in 2009, but he did affirm it. He did affirm it, and he piggybacked it to a religious holiday, what they were trying to do, because it's an insult. It's an insult to religion, which is often being done by a lot of these groups, which is why they hijacked the rainbow in the first place. And Brian says, some guy at my job claimed that pictures of Earth from space are fake. There's enough satellites up there now that you can't really fake it anymore. You know what I mean? There's like 10,000 satellites in orbit. How do you fake it? I mean, if nobody went up there and there were no satellites and no imagery, then you could make an argument for that, but it's impossible anymore. It's impossible anymore. Now, this I thought was interesting. We're going to jump to Georgia. We're going to jump to Georgia really quickly, or for a moment. And this is a Meow, MEAWW article talking about Warnock. Now, this article is going to be biased against Warnock. And, you know, I'm not reading it because I'm also biased against Warnock, which I am, because I think he's a fraud. But I just think that it's it ties in with the previous article, and I think it makes the man a hypocrite. It says, fake pastor speaks, internet shreds Senator Raphael Warnock as he blasts Mike Johnson for Transmogrified Day of Visibility criticism. Now, Warnock, as you know, is a pastor out here. He is extremely wealthy. He's very wealthy. He still gets paid a fortune from his church. He's a U.S. senator. You never hear from the guy unless there's an election. You won't see or hear from him or hear anything about him usually unless there's an election. This is the guy who the police had to come out because he hit his wife with his car, or his ex-wife, on purpose. So here we go. Senator Raphael, the Republican outrage directed at President Joe Biden. And again, it's not just Republicans and not just conservatives that are complaining about this, for acknowledging Transmogrified Day on Easter Sunday, particularly singling out Speaker Mike Johnson's criticism as the opposite of the Christian faith, according to The Hill. Transmogrified Day visibility observed on March 31st coincidentally fell on Easter this year. Yeah, coincidence. And as usual, Biden marked the day like every year. The move infuriated conservatives, and Johnson labeled the move as an outrageous and abhorrent attack on Christianity. It has nothing to do with Easter. It didn't need to be brought up. Warnock, a Baptist pastor, barely, besides his role in Congress, lashed out at the speaker's criticism during an interview on CNN. Apparently, the speaker finds transmogrified people abhorrent, and I think he ought to think about that. The senator from Georgia fumes. Warnock, who gave an Easter sermon at Martin Luther King's church, the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, added, one of the most corrupt churches now in the country, in my opinion. Totally political. There's nothing biblical going on there. I promise. This is just one more instance of folks who do not know how to, trying to divide us. Really, Warnock? Are you sure? This is the opposite of Christian faith. Jesus centered on the marginalized. He centered the poor. Did he? Are you sure? Because, you know, he also talked to wealthy people. He didn't only talk to or minister to poor people, Warnock. He didn't. Yeah, in a moment like this, we need voices, particularly voices of faith, who would use their faith not as a weapon to beat other people down, but as a bridge to bring all of us together, he said. You know, that's also why all churches are infiltrated at this point in the United States. Compromise and compromise and compromise, so much so that they end up catering to and pandering to those that they bring in instead of changing and enlightening the people that come in. You're bringing them in by lowering your standards to put a butt in the seat to fill the pews. You lower your standards constantly, and there's nowhere left to go but down. So they come in and they don't have to change. They don't have to learn. You're the one who's changing. And then one day you look around and your church isn't your church anymore and you don't recognize it. That's what's happened to the Christian faith in the Western world. They continued to pander, to bring people in, to fill the seats and pass the plates. And now they're unrecognizable. And this guy's a reflection of that. Pastor my ass. Ebenezer Baptist Church is where all the politicians go. If Hillary Clinton breezes into town, she's going to go there and she's going to talk for 45 minutes. And it won't be anything biblical. It won't be anything biblical. Velvet Pilot said, I have a hard time believing flat earth, but I know a lot of wonderful awake people who believe in wholeheartedly, and they put up a great case. They do. He says, I think the reason they say the globalists lie about the earth's shape is because it makes humans look tiny and meaningless in comparison. It's designed to disempower us as individuals. Again, I don't buy into it, but I was curious. Thanks for answering the question. No problem. If I have time, I'll usually try to respond as much as I can. Urban says, sorry, kids, Easter egg hunt is canceled this year. Please make your way to the garden for drag scavenger search by some nice hairy train. Oh, wow. Sorry, not sorry. Had to say it. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I'm surprised they didn't have drag shows. Wait till next year if he gets elected again. You'll see drag shows at the White House. Unbelievable. And that's socio-political, and it has no place there. I can understand telling the kids don't put political stuff on the eggs, but not putting religious stuff, and it's Easter, it doesn't make sense. But there is Warnock being a hypocrite, telling people that it's totally Christian to pander to anybody. And of course, he only does that to get people into the church, to pass it around, to be as political as possible. I don't trust that guy at all. And then 115 says, join the Flat Earth Society. They have members all around the world. Wah, wah. A little pun there from 115. I just thought I'd throw that out there to wrap all of that up. And we'll jump from Georgia to New York City. We're going to jump to New York City. Are you ready, New York Patriot? Are you still there? Are you ready for this? New York City. And more, stating the obvious. I've talked about this before. Not this specifically, but this concept. And I'll elaborate. And this is a New York Post article. New York Post article. Anytime. There we go. New York City task force to push school on migrant kids that are selling food and drinks along roadways. Force them into school. Make them go. Make them go. Pass the plate. Religion never appealed to me, especially when they harbored pedo. Yeah, indeed. And one more from Urban. He says, Pope Francis is a changeling. He pretended to speak to God at the beginning, but now seems to take advice from the other guy. Yeah, I don't trust the Pope either. There's too much weird stuff going on with him. But back to New York. Launched a new push to migrant kids to go to school instead of dangerously selling food and drink on the side of roadways. A multi-agency task force quietly formed 2 months ago, consisting of staffers from the Administration for Children's Services, Department of Affairs Office to End Domestic and Gender-Based Violence, will now pivot to roadside outreach after the Post last week revealed how young migrant children were routinely peddling on major thoroughfares in South Queens. I see. So you're going to send social workers around to speak to these children who probably do not understand what you're saying anyways, because they speak everything but English. When, if it was my kid, you would put them in foster care and put me in jail. I just wanted to be clear. Back to the article. The task force is currently focusing efforts at city shelters, trying to convince migrant parents to send their kids to school. And here we see some pictures of these kids that have been snapped in New York's. There's one kid in the subway with a tray full of food. Here's this girl on the side of the road with like bags of snacks. This is probably stuff they stole from the shelter. Quote, I'm glad to see that the city is finally addressing this issue after nearly 2 years talking about it, said Councilwoman Joan Ariola. Hope that they don't waste any additional time conducting studies and focus groups before the task force actually hits the streets and starts making a difference. Oh, sweetheart, they will absolutely waste time and tax dollars for focus groups and task forces and unnecessary studies. So don't waste your breath. Their work includes making school-age children are enrolled in schools. Parents know about safe after-school programs available to kids and childcare referrals, all on your dime, your tax money. To community-based organizations that we partner with are made whenever possible. Mammal said, here's another kid on the side of the road selling water. Here's another boy selling, I don't know what he's holding, but he's selling something there. He's got a tray, and on and on. More than 180,000 migrants have arrived in the Big Apple since 22, and the city is caring for about 65,000 of them, and the city has already hemorrhaged $3.5 billion dealing with the migrant crisis. And they expect to spend another $12 billion by 2025. And this is, I'm going to say the same thing that I said when I was talking about or showing the images and the articles about migrants selling things on the street. Is if you're in New York, you've probably seen it, especially around the shelters. There isn't an inch of sidewalk that doesn't have tarps or blankets on it with loads of junk that's been swiped from the shelters or swiped from God knows where, that they're out there selling. There's prostitutes that are walking around all over the place. There's people out there begging. This ties in with that culture clash. Where they come from, this is normal. And for some reason, lawmakers in New York don't understand this. They didn't come here to assimilate to American culture. They came here for a handout, and they're bringing all their mess with them. If you've ever been overseas, you know what I'm talking about. And I don't mean if you took a cruise, because if you took a cruise, you went to designated tourist areas that are owned and operated by the cruise lines. They don't want you to see all that. They don't want you to see it because it's not safe for the people that are on their cruise, and they want to keep you safe. They want to protect you. But if you go into the real world, outside of the Western world, you see a lot of this. You see kids walking around selling things, kids begging, kids pickpocketing, prostitutes everywhere, wandering around, trash all filled up in the streets. Every street is a bazaar. There's blankets with tons of garbage on it that people are trying to sell, peddling. This is what goes on. Take America says breaking Stephen Diedelbach raided by AFT for illegal machine guns early this morning. Really? And it says he's the head of the ATF. Then he should be able to have a license, a proper license for it. Oh, and he says April Fools. Okay. So he didn't. I would think he'd have a license for it. New York Patriot says, all while ignoring children in our own communities, the New York City Child Services in a nutshell, ask me how I know. Yeah, indeed. And Nature Nerd says migrants know more about finances and business than our own kids in schools. Well, at least they'll get out there and hustle. They won't go to school. Excuse me, but they'll get out there and hustle. And Urban says, why would migrants be exempt from public school Marxist indoctrination? Yeah, why would they be? Well, they've opened the schools up for them, but I guess because they're not citizens, they can't force them. I don't know how that works. I don't know how that works or what the excuse is, but it won't be long before we're going to try to convince migrant families to you have no choice. It's a burden anyway because they can't speak English. 115 says there was a group of individuals selling items out of the back of a U-Haul, 3 for $10, not in my area, but a couple hours away. The items were $20, $30, $40, $50 in value, and they had a lot of it brand new in box. And Take America says pickpocket signs, scooter purse snatchers. Yeah, and I just got my alert. For those of you who are wondering, and I do announce this, I just now got my alert letting me know that I am live. Thank you, ScrewTube. Thank you. It's only been half an hour. No, 31 minutes. It's been 31 minutes, ScrewTube. Thanks for letting me know. I really appreciate it. Helter says the way the media covers this stuff, so much compassion, then you see how real Americans are reacting. And Urban says, wow, child slavery is literally happening in front of people, and Democrats are still worried about history of slavery. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I doubt those kids are keeping that money. When my kid did stuff, my son used to open up the lemonade stand on the corner. He would do stuff like that. And, but I didn't take a dime from him. Just let him do whatever. And Monkey said, yet you get states where the Labor Department busts a company seeing a kid young as 14 working in a factory and General Assembly Department. Yeah. And then Fluke Man says cruise liners don't want their customers to have bad experiences. Obviously, they want the customers to come back and say good things. Correct. But that's how it looks in the rest of the world. You go to some of these places, and so if you've been deployed, you probably know what I'm talking about because you've been in some of the more shady areas, and that's what it looks like. The world is their trash heap. Everything is in the streets, and everybody. So this shouldn't surprise anyone, and they knew about it for a long time. They knew about this, and they didn't want to even address it until the Post did an article on it earlier, which it says right here. It says consisting of staffers from the Administration for Children's Services, Department of Education, Mayor's Office to End Domestic and Gender Violence will now pivot to roadside outreach after the Post last week revealed how young migrant children were routinely peddling on major thoroughfares and in Southwest Queens. So the newspaper did an article. The mayor's office was embarrassed. Now all of a sudden they want a task force. That's what that boils down to. They knew. You're going to tell me that's been going on that long and they didn't know? Of course they knew. They know, but they didn't care until they were cornered. They were cornered because it was in the newspaper, and now they have no choice. They have to at least look at it and pretend like they're doing something about it. But every solution they come up with is just going to cost you more because that's all tax money. All of those extra social workers, all the committees to research it and all this other stuff, and sending people out in the field, that's tax money. Putting more of those kids in public schools, that's tax money. So you're funding this more and more. Why? Because it is a migrant industrial complex. Paul Burke says they wish they would have worked instead of going to school. They got out as soon as they could and did all right. Yeah, I know what you mean. I knew school was a waste of time when I hit middle school. When I was in junior high, I knew that it was a waste of time. I knew it was a waste of time at that point. Now we're going to jump back to Washington, D.C. We're going to jump back to Washington, D.C., and we're going to take a look at Kamala Harris coming up with more funding to screw you up. More of your tax dollars at work. United Liberty article. Whenever Restream graces us with the transition. There we are. Kamala Harris announces $750 million in funding to take your guns without due process. That's right. They're after your firearms again. There's Kamala. How you doing, Kamala? Do you know what a firearm is? It says, in recent announcement, Vice President Kamala Harris revealed plans, hold still, for a significant allocation of funds totaling $750 million towards the establishment of a National Extreme Risk Protection Order Resource Center. Wow, that's a mouthful. National Extreme Risk Protection Order Resource Center. While the initiative may sound innocuous, it effectively translates to the implementation of red flag laws, a move that raises concerns about due process rights. The premise of red flag laws, which allows firearms to be confiscated from individuals deemed by a court to pose a threat to themselves or others, has sparked contentious debates surrounding constitutional rights and the balance between public safety and civil liberties. Critics argue the red flag laws undermined the fundamental principle of due process by enabling the seizure of firearms without affording individuals the opportunity to defend themselves in a court of law. This notion is particularly troubling to the constitutional protections guaranteed to all citizens. What protections? I can't tell. Furthermore, the federal government's push to incentivize states to adopt red flag laws through monetary means raises questions about the integrity of the legislative process. By offering financial incentives, now this is the key, by offering financial incentives to state and local politicians, the government risks politicizing an issue that should be approached with careful consideration of constitutional rights and legal precedent. Absolutely. That's how it should be. Moreover, the creation of a National Extreme Risk Protection Order Resource Center serves as a coercive tactic to encourage states to enact red flag laws, thereby expanding the reach of these controversial measures. Rather than fostering genuine dialogue and collaboration, this approach appears to prioritize political agendas over the protection of individual rights. Say it isn't so. The executive office prioritizing political objectives over people's rights, I never would have imagined. I never would have imagined that the government would do that. Really? Sarcasm, anyone? Sarcasm, anyone? And that's exactly what that is. It's the same as the program where they're going to pay college students to go out and recruit people to vote. And they say, well, we're not paying people to vote. No, you're not technically paying someone to vote, but you're paying someone to go out and catfish someone into voting. That shouldn't be allowed. Now you want to pay states to adopt these programs to create red flag agendas for guns so that you can declare someone unsafe, unfit, unwhatever, and confiscate weapons from them without any type of due process. Because all it would take is a judge's signature at that point. Hardly fair. Catching up some comments. Flukeman says, parents, coyote gangs, human smugglers push the kids to sell in public. The best way to help the children is to take them off the streets into people actually cares, or just don't buy anything from them. Yeah, don't buy anything from them, because we all have soft spot for children. The younger they are, the more we want to help them. And some of them you can't help. They don't want your help. These kids, they know what they're doing. And you can do anything for them. You can be nice to them, whatever. And they'll stab you in the back. You got to be careful because they're raised up in this. So as far as they're concerned, everything's fine. And Urban says, for the Canadians here, happy Federal Carbon Tax Day. Yeah. Nature Nerd says, problem is they can say anyone's crazy and take their firearms. Correct. And Dragon says, the power to confiscate property plus the power to tax plus the power to disarm equals tyranny. Exactly. That is the opening of the concept of tyranny. And Helter says, this is how it starts. Next, it's the rest of your rights. Meanwhile, she still has her security team walking alongside her and could be armed herself if she chose to do so. If she chose to do so. How hard do you think it would be for her to to get a firearms license, if she even needs one. Oh, and James O'Donnell said, got to get back to work. Well, glad you could join us, James. And Take America said, Trump's red flag laws, Republicans hate that fact. And speaking of civil liberties, and this is another United Liberty article. This one comes from the FBI. Because, Kamala Harris isn't the only one doing this crap. Civil liberties under siege. FBI demands identities of users who watch certain YouTube videos. Uh-oh. I hope it's not me. Privacy experts have voiced alarm over the mandated data retrieval, citing concerns. Hold still. Thing moved on me. Citing concerns about its implication for civil liberties, while federal investigators argue that such data is crucial for ongoing criminal investigations. Critics argue that the broad scope of the request poses significant risks to privacy rights, particularly regarding the First and Fourth Amendments. The court's order, they argue, sets a dangerous precedent and reflects a troubling trend of expanding law enforcement powers into the digital realm. And what are they talking about here? Recent revelations have unveiled a concerning development in online privacy as federal investigators, God, this is not holding still, have ordered Google's to hand over user data from YouTube accounts that viewed specific videos. The mandate, part of a broader criminal investigation, has ignited debates over the balance between privacy rights and law enforcement needs. Court documents recently unsealed and reviewed by Forbes reveal that Google was compelled to disclose the names, addresses, telephone numbers, and user activity of YouTube accounts and IP addresses that accessed certain videos. These videos initially sent by undercover police to a suspected cryptocurrency launderer operating under the username Elon Musk WHM, covered topics such as drone mapping and augmented reality software tutorials. Despite being intended for the suspect, these videos garnered over 30,000 views, potentially implicating thousands of unrelated users. So essentially, they wanted to get information on everyone who looked at not just this individual, but this is just an example that they're using, but certain people on YouTube. The FBI wanted Google to give them the names, addresses, telephone numbers, internet history, and IP addresses of anyone who looked at certain videos. So if you looked at something, even if it was something that you're not part of, like, okay, this guy was doing something shady, whatever, you might have looked out of curiosity, not thought anything of it. Now you're on an FBI watch list. And, that makes me think of the McCarthy hearings when they were going after the socialists and the communists in the 50s. And they would go after anyone. There was no rhyme or reason to it. Not that they were wrong. There was and is an infiltration of socialism and communism in the United States. But just because someone went to a rally for 30 minutes in college in 1949 doesn't mean they're a communist or sympathize with it. They went, they looked, whatever, went home. Now they're on an FBI watch list. And now they're being interviewed. And the FBI leaned on these people heavily. They didn't let up until the mid-70s. A lot of people don't realize that it wasn't until the mid-70s that the FBI was told to stop persecuting those people that were interviewed. They ran them into the ground. Those people couldn't get jobs. They couldn't do anything because of those watch lists, because the FBI would come around and talk to the employers. They'd get fired. They had trouble finding places to live. They made it hell for those people, and many of them were innocent. Sven says needs are not rights. And Take America says, how is anybody not expecting everything they do is watched by now? No kidding. Nature Nerd says crackdown on Google user data right before an election. Of course. Yeah. And Semper Fi says, yay, another square checked off my government overreach bingo card. I know, huh? Do you have bingo yet? Hopefully you won't reach it anytime soon. New York Patriot said, this is the type of BS that makes me want to delete everything. Not that I have much in the way of social media to begin with. And then Paul says, if someone watches you, then kills someone, they will shut you down. Oh, no. Absolutely. And Take America says FBI knocking on doors for legal Facebook post. Meanwhile, border wide open. Exactly. And they will persecute you. If you might remember, and I've mentioned this before, you guys might recall a YouTuber, some of you, that went by the moniker the Doctor of Common Sense. He had a couple of YouTube channels and he sort of faded away. He did a video, and I've mentioned this before, where he was talking about that the FBI came to his house. So they knocked on the door and they wanted to question him about some of the things that he said about, I think it was Obama. And the fact that they would even come and bother you at your home and ask you questions about something they already know the answer to anyway, because they probably looked at the video. I mean, how far are you willing to take it? And this was how long ago? How long ago? It was years ago that this happened to him. Think about that. How bad is it now? Dragon says they're pretty sure that 85% of the population of the U.S. are all on the watch list at this point for one thing or another. The next thing they'll be wanting is a list of everyone who liked the video. Yeah, no kidding. And Helder says their college professor told the class years ago that certain books, searches, and movies get you on a watch list. This was in the early 2000s. And Urban said the FBI will come out in a jiffy when it's about a Facebook post or viewing a random video, but try to get them to investigate the illegal migrant flop houses. Good luck. And then Fluke Man said, but there's so many clickbait videos you can see a thumbnail and just believe it's fake. Yeah, and you don't know. I mean, sometimes you're just curious about something. Sometimes you open something up and you look at it and you're like, nah, that's not for me, and you shut it off. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? But now they want to keep track of all of that so that they can come back and use it against you one day. Essentially, that's what it's going to boil down to. Take America says FBI, ATF harassing people at home and work, and they say IRS are the next harassing us. Yeah, and I've been through that. I've been through that with the IRS. They're the worst ones. Quite frankly, they can be really, really bad. They can be really bad. And we're going to jump all the way to California. Anybody ready to take a trip to California, to the University of Berkeley, California, violating your rights? Well, some people's rights, anyways. Daily Mail article. UC Berkeley accused of racism after banning whites from the community farm. Oh, you can't go to the community farm now. And WCM says waxed in Southern Oregon today. Chemtrail after chemtrail. Really? Hold your breath. And Urban says RCMP, and that's the Canadian Mounties, were routinely harassing people on their doorstep for posting videos of the peaceful trucker rally in Ottawa. Intimidation is the name of the game. Correct. Absolutely correct. So University of Berkeley here. And they're giving people a hard time about the community garden now. And it says one of the most progressive and socially liberal schools in the country is cultivating controversy as it faces accusation of racism after it allegedly banned white residents from accessing community farms on Saturday. Gill Tract Community Farm in nearby Albany has designated Saturdays exclusively for the use of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, aka BIPOC now. After a complaint was filed with the U.S. Department of Education by the Mountain States Legal Foundation, the move has been denounced by some as an example of systemic racism. Yeah, that's it. I'm being racist because I don't think it's fair that you kicked me out of your community garden because I'm white. Yeah, that's the racism. So Gill Tract Farm was established in 2013 through a partnership between UC Berkeley and the local communities it serves as a site for urban farming research. Part of the farm's ethos is to support the, quote, food justice movement by cultivating crops for healthy meals. William Trackman, general counsel for the Mountain States Legal Foundation, has criticized the university's stance. Berkeley thinks that racial segregation is progressive now, but it's no different than the segregation of the past, said Trackman, as he told the New York Post. And he would be right. Preventing Caucasians from accessing Berkeley's College of Natural Resources farm on Saturdays is a violation of Title VI, which bars educational institutions from engaging in or allowing race discrimination, Trackman said. Trackman is calling for a comprehensive investigation into all UC Berkeley programs to address what he has described as systemic racism. UC Berkeley has said that they were unaware of the discrimination complaint until being contacted by the media. That's because when people went and complained to their personnel offices, they ignored those complaints. That's really simple. Furthermore, I'm willing to bet that this is part of the community garden project from the FDA. The FDA, of course, has the community garden project. I talked about it on the Prepper channel because a lot of people think that it's a way for the government to try to track and confiscate your garden, but only organizations like this can be part of that program. If you are a school, or if you've got a tract of land that's been allocated by the mayor's office that they're letting you grow vegetables on that you give away to the food pantry, you can be in the community garden project. I can't imagine a college or university not being part of that, because the function behind it is that you get a kickback from the federal government to help you run the garden or the farm. So absolutely, it is very likely that Berkeley is part of the community garden project and is getting federal funding to run the operation, which means that they're violating the FDA's rules about how these things are supposed to be run anyways. Never mind any other standards that are being quoted here, like a violation of Title VI, barring educational institutions from engaging in or allowing race discrimination. They're also violating the federal government mandate as it regards to the FDA, if they are on the community garden project, which I'm sure they probably are. And catching up some comments here, Nature Nerd says, if you were on ham radio in the 70s and 80s talking to people all over the world, you were put on an FBI watch list for talking to commies in Russia, for example. Wow. And Urban says, UC Berkeley trying to say that only black people are allowed to be sharecroppers on campus. Yeah. Oh, you know what, though? As you recall, apparently the outdoors are racist. You remember we read that article about a month ago that that parks and places like that outdoors are racist against people of color. So you're forcing them into a racist environment by making them be on the farm on Saturday. Oh my God. And Take America said speech laws for us only, not you, should be no speech laws. And WCM says cultivating division. Exactly, excuse me. And Separate Fi says breaking news, someone tried to crash the gated Atlanta FBI office. And Take America says poor black traded with rich white, role reversal happening basically, but not money. Talking about the movie Trading Places. Yeah, Trading Places, one of Eddie Murphy's better films. He most of his films are junk. He has a couple that are gems. Trading Places, The Distinguished Gentleman, and Coming to America are probably his best films. Sven says all of this is meant for people of color. Fake help harms communities of color. All the help is meant is to segregate and destroy anyone, no matter their color. Supporting this is supporting systemic racism. And Flukeman says sometimes anti-racists put Asians into the same mixing bowls as white people, think it's because they work hard, so they're a lot more successful than blacks and makes them jealous. I don't know. And where are we here? Paul says next they'll say only people of color will be allowed to carry self-protection tools. Yeah, it will. And Take America said Europe did a multi-million-dollar study to see if white paint is racist. Well, I wish I could have gotten in on that. Pay me $1 million to tell you if paint is racist. It all depends on what you do with the paint. And Brian says Milhouse from The Simpsons was put on the most wanted watch list when pursued, he said, I didn't do anything. Then the agent said, I don't care. You know, they took that from the film version of, what was it? With Harrison Ford. It was Harrison Ford. The Fugitive. Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford, when they were on the dam. The Fugitive, of course, was a television series, and it was made into a film. It's one of the few film to movie transitions that didn't look like total shit. And he's up on the dam, and he turns to Tommy Lee Jones, and he says, I'm innocent. And then Jones says, I don't care. Because to him, he's just doing the job. That's where they borrowed that from, Brian. There you go. New York says The Fugitive. Yep. And then Urban says, and don't even get me started on off-white eggshell hues. Off-white. That's racist. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. What are you going to do? Everything is racist. And it's every story all the time. You know, I've looked through the available stories to grab things that catch my eye, and I try not to grab too many like this. Unless it's something really stupid. But every day, coursing through the feed, there's like a dozen articles. 15 things that white people do that are clandestinely racist to black people. What the hell do you think I do? And then if you read the article, it's total bullshit. It's stuff that doesn't even make sense. It's like, why are you trying to trigger people? Why are you trying to trigger people? Why are you trying to divide us? Who is paying you to divide us like this? Why have you sold your soul to destroy humanity? How far are you going to get on 30 pieces of silver? Was it worth it? Was it worth it to sell out for a taste? For a taste. You know, it makes me think of another really good film, actually much better than The Fugitive. They Live, Roddy Piper's best movie. They Live. And the scene at the end, because the church was compromised initially because the homeless guy wasn't really homeless, he was a spy. And they run into him when they raid the TV station. And it's like, because he's wearing a tuxedo and he's got a gold watch and everything. And it was like, you sold out your own kind. Paraphrasing a little bit here. He's like, you sold out your own kind. And he's like, yeah, and why not? Sure. He said, why not get a taste? You can't fight them. They own everything. Why can't I have a piece? And I see that in so many walks of life. I see it in the media. I see it with these celebrities. I see it with these athletes and these politicians. You sold out. You're selling people down the river. For what? All money isn't good money. All money is good. It isn't good money. You know, and there should be a point where people have a line and it's like, you know what? No. But no, people can't do it. They keep setting the bar lower. And as I've stated before, when you set the bar low, there's nowhere to go but down. You set it lower and lower and lower until you eventually bury yourself or somebody else. And Brian made a donation to the channel. Thank you, Brian. Very much appreciated. Always appreciated when somebody is able to help the channel out. Goes a long way. Goes a long way. And with that, we are at the top of the hour. So we are going to go ahead and start signing off. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and that is at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. Please do find me there if you don't mind, if you have that account. And fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. And again, thanks to everybody who was able to join us here today. And special thanks again to Brian for making a donation to the channel. Hope you all got something out of the conversation. And we will see you again